is the Rangers Journal now.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Journal podcast. I'm Scotty, your host, and I'm delighted to be joined by the Statsman Doug and a guest from the Sheffield United Way podcast tonight. And we're here to talk about, I'm just trying not to butcher his name here, Jesurun Rak-Sakyi. First of all, come to you, Doug. Doug, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. Happy it's the weekend again.
I know. And next we've got Nick from the Sheffield United Way. Nick, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Very happy to be here.
Oh, thank you for coming on. So first of all, tell us a wee bit about your podcast in Sheffield United this season. What's your hopes?
Yeah, so I run a, as you say, YouTube channel and podcast where you can find us everywhere with the Sheffield United Way. And we've been going for 8 or 9 years now. It feels like a long time. It feels like longer than that, in all honesty. But maybe that's just because we're used to watching Sheffield United and the ups and downs. But yeah, this season, hoping for another title push, or at least automatic push. I reckon we're going to be in between that second place and that sixth place. So fingers crossed for the former.
It was a pretty close title run last season. I watched a wee bit of Leeds myself. Chris Wilder's been removed, and I think it's Ruben Selles this season. Is that right? Who's
that's right. I don't think many fans expected Chris Wilder to get the boot after amassing 90 points on the table. We had a -2, so we ended up amassing 92 points overall. And that's incredible to say that Chris Wilder then got the sack. So, I think half of the fans were happy that we were kind of moving on and trying something different. And I think half the fans are like, what is going on? Why are we sacking this man that's done so well? And he's obviously loved by the Sheffield United fans because he is a blade himself, played for United, ball boy, manager. He is a bit of a legend at Sheffield United. And it was sad to see him go. But at the same time, it's exciting to, see another manager come through the door. And in all honesty, we've only ever had one foreign manager. When I say foreign, outside of these shores. And he didn't do very well. Slavisa Jokanovic did shockingly at Sheffield United. So hopefully, Sellers does a lot better than that. And we see some exciting football at Bramall Lane this season.
Good stuff. We wish you all the best in the season ahead. Doug, you want to come in with the first question about the player and topic?
Let's bring up this graphic here. So, I think maybe just open up with a bit of a general question about the player and sort of how you would describe him generally. For a lot of the fans will maybe not have heard of him prior to him being linked with the club. So maybe just first of all, just give us a bit of a general feeling about the player and what type of player is he?
Yeah, no problem. That's fine. I'm glad that you've got all this info on screen because it helps me out a lot. But having seen him play all last season, I think that a lot of Crystal Palace fans expected it to be a quick season in the Championship. Him, fire us up the division, scoring lots of goals and creating lots of goals, and then he'd go back to them and kind of follow the footsteps of Abira Eze and Elise, those sorts of players. But it didn't quite work out for him in that way. Jesurun Rak-Sakyi played on the right-hand side for Sheffield United last season. He kept out one of our own, Andre Brooks, who was a very similar player, a little bit more technical, but Jesurun Rak-Sakyi was certainly more direct and ran at players, tried to beat a man and scored way more goals than Andre Brooks. So it was a funny one for Sheffield United because on his day he was the best player on the pitch, and that happened a fair few times. He scored 7 goals for us last season, as your graphic says. 36 games played sounds like a lot for a winger because they're in and out of form at times, wingers, and you can't always expect to get 90 minutes out of them every week, and they score goals and create goals every week. But he did have a few little injuries along the way. Obviously, not enough to keep him out for too many games, but I think that kind of stunted his form, if you like. So I feel like he's a player that takes a while to get bedded in, because when he first started for the Blades, he struggled at first. And I think it was 2 goals he scored when he eventually scored. And that's what he kind of seems to do, is go on little purple patches, and then he'll go a few games playing poorly, not doing what he needs to do. And I feel like he's going to have a good career, but he flattered to deceive at times last season. And early part of the season, he was flying. And then suddenly, I don't know if it was an injury. I can't remember that far back, whether it was an injury or whether he just kind of fell out of form, and Wilder tried Andre Brooks instead. But yeah, I can't give him a fully glowing reference. But he's a right-hand-sided player that likes to cut in on his left. He's not great with his right, but he likes to get to the byline and get balls into the box with his right. And even being really direct, beating players, and then having a go with his right. So I'm not saying it's just for standing on. It's not the best, his right foot, but he does like to get up back onto his left foot, and scored a couple of goals where he curled them into the corner from getting onto that left foot. But he's somebody that knows that players know that he's left-footed, so he can go out on his right. Like I said, he is very direct. He is quickish. He's not rapid, but he's quickish, and he's very skillful, and really good dribble of the ball. And if he's going up one-on-one against a defender, I think I would go Jesurun Rak-Sakyi to beat his man probably 7 times out of 10. So yeah, really exciting attacking winger, but sometimes takes a while to get bedded into a side and enjoy the fruits of how good he is.
Cool. Yeah, that's very good. Great introduction there. Just going to take a wee quick second to thank the Catalyst, who's become a new member to the channel. So thank you very much, mate, for joining. I hope you are enjoying the content. And for anyone else, please do consider becoming a YouTube member. Obviously, like and subscribe as well if you'd like to. If you're enjoying what you're seeing so far on Rak-Sakyi, and we do stuff like this on any player that we're linked with pretty much. So if you want information on players that might be coming to Rangers, then this is the place. So again, thanks very much to the Catalyst there. You talked about him there as being the best player in the team on occasions, being a bit in and out at the same time. How is his departure, do you think, going to affect the team? Is he a player that you would have liked to have kept, or do you think you'll be able to replace him reasonably well?
Yeah, in all honesty, I think Andre Brooks will literally just take his place. Obviously, he was on loan from Palace, so it doesn't feel like a departure. It feels more like if we'd have got promoted, I would have rather have gone for a different player, because I don't think he didn't show enough for me in the Championship for us to want to sign him again in a higher division, if you like. But if we were still in the Championship, I feel like I would have taken him back, and I would have liked to have seen another season from him, because he is one of the best players he was one of the best players in the Championship last season on his day, as I've just mentioned. And yeah, we probably would have got more out of him, having had like that season under his belt, that bit of experience in the Championship. I think he would have gone well again. And I think this is obviously another reason why. I'm assuming this is another loan from Palace. Is that right?
I think it could be either. I've seen we might be looking to take him on loan with some kind of option or something to buy, as is the kind of trend, particularly with clubs like ourselves. We've done that quite a lot in recent years. So I think it's that kind of thing, because the price for us is reasonably high, kind of talking about 8 to 10 million potentially,
Right.
which unfortunately for us is still a significant layout up in Scotland. So yeah, I think we are keen to buy him, but it might be a loan initially with a potential option or obligation.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I don't think that's actually a bad price for someone like him, because we all know that strikers and wingers are a premium. That's that's what you pay your money for. And for one of the better players in the Championship these days, it's 20 million plus. Like the amount of money that Leeds have sold players for in recent seasons just shows that if he'd had a really, really good season in the Championship last season, like if he'd have played as we expected him to most games, I feel like he would have had a 20 million pound price tag slapped on him. So I think 8 to 10 million could be a really, really good buy, especially if he has a really good season for you, because his price going to rocket then. And I do feel like it could be one of those players. I think he just needs to realise his potential or realise how good he is, because he does seem like quite a quiet lad. Not obviously, I don't know the lad, but on the pitch, he doesn't give off a very arrogant vibe or even confident vibe at times. He does seem quite in his shell. I'm not saying that he didn't seem like he got on with the lads. He certainly did. But he doesn't seem like one of those attackers that's going to be like, look at me, how great am I? Every time he celebrated, it wasn't particularly. I think he got his own signature celebration, but like it was very subdued. So I think he could. Yeah, he just needs to realise how good he is, because he is a fantastic player. Got a great shot on him. He's really confident in front of goal. But I think that confidence, comes out of him when he is, playing well and he is confident on the pitch. So yeah, I think that could be a good price tag for him. Obviously, you guys saying that it's not probably something that you'd be normally paying, and we probably wouldn't either, really. But yeah, like you say, if he can do really well for you guys and you bought him for 8 million, then you could be selling him for 15 million the season after. So it's probably a really, really good buy.
Ideal.
I think it could be a bit of a risky one if you do buy him, but if it's a loan to buy, then it could be right up your street.
Talking about risks, a point you touched on there. You talked about his mentality. Do you think coming to a club like Rangers, where he's going to be under pressure from day one to perform, and he's going to be under pressure to be within a team who must win every game, and there's the pressure there for him to go and win things, and to not do will be categorical failure. How do you think he would deal with that kind of pressure? Kind of just based on what you were saying there about his maybe lack of confidence at times.
Yeah, it is a slight worry for me, in all honesty, for him and for obviously you guys. For us last season, he came in as a bit of a marquee player because I think he had a really good season in League One. You've probably already done this research, but for the viewers out there, he had a really good season in League One with Charlton. Scored a lot of goals, made a lot of goals, and he left there with a glowing reference. I believe then he got a really serious injury and it kept him out for the full season. And then I think Crystal Palace thought, right, we'll bed him in at a Championship club that's going to be towards the top, who's going to have a lot of the ball, probably score a lot of goals so that he can get in and around those goals. And I think I've mentioned earlier on that I think they expected to take him back and he would follow that sort of pathway into the first team. I've just quickly had a look and I've seen that the only game that he's played in pre-season he scored in, and Palace won 1-0 against Millwall, I believe it was. So he's clearly still really confident. The back end of the season for us, he wasn't even playing. I don't know whether that was an injury. It never really got spoken about. I don't know whether that was an injury or Chris Wilder just didn't fancy him in the last few games. Like it kind of goes back to that possible, weak mentality, if you like, if Chris Wilder doesn't fancy him in the final of the playoffs. So that is a worry for me because there's a lot of Championship players that seem to go to Scotland to either you guys or your rivals, and it doesn't exactly work out for them, and they end up back in the Championship or even League One. So I wish him all the best. It's certainly not. We've not got a bad taste in our mouth about Jez because Jez was a fantastic footballer for us and did really well for us last season. It just wasn't enough for us because I think when we were signing Jez, Leeds were also in for him, and I think there were other few clubs around the top of the Championship in for him because everybody thought he was going to be the difference, and unfortunately he wasn't. I think if you'd have plunked him in a Leeds side or a Burnley side, maybe it might have been different because clearly Leeds and Burnley were the two best teams in the Championship last season. But who knows? Who knows? It's a really weird one because I can't stand here and say, or sit here and say, that he's going to go one way or the other. I think it's really a toss of the coin whether he's fantastic for you or is a bit of a failure, because from what you're saying, it sounds like if he had the season for you that he had for us last season, then it probably would have been looked at as a bit of a failure. Whereas for us, it seemed like he was, good on his day, but just not enough.
Nick, see, in terms of Russell Martin, obviously you probably watched Russell Martin's Southampton team in the Championship the season before last. Now, do you think he's a player that would suit Russell Martin's style of play based on what you've seen at Southampton?
To be perfectly honest, I've not seen enough of Southampton because we've not played against Southampton for quite a few seasons because we just keep missing them. I've seen a Russell Martin team come to Bramall Lane with Swansea, and they've played out from the back and we've beaten them 4-0 both times. And I think that's mostly down to the fact that he didn't have the players at Swansea that he had at Southampton. So I actually really like Russell Martin. I actually like how he plays football. And I think that if you gave him a really, really big job in the Premier League, he'd probably do a good job with better players. So I think going to Rangers, I think he'll do really well for you guys. But to answer your question, sticking Jez in a very possession-based team, not sure, because I always felt like when Rak-Sakyi was on top of his game, was kind of away from home when we had less of the ball, and the ball kind of, we're playing on the break, and, he's able to spring into action and create something from, when we've only got a couple of players going forward. When, the other team are sat in a bank of 4 and 5, for instance, he did struggle to break teams down, which a lot of players are going to struggle to break teams down when they're sat in like that. But I did feel like he didn't really have that in his locker to take on more players than just one, if you like. If you doubled up on Rak-Sakyi, I think more often than not, he's going to pass it backwards. But, I don't know. I feel like he might not be the perfect manager for Rak-Sakyi's talents, just based on what I've just said.
It's interesting. It's an interesting take. What we seen midweek against Panathinaikos was the fullbacks were inverting into Midley Park and kind of trying to control and suck the low block out, if that makes any sense, and then go in behind at speed. See, in terms of low blocks, though, what you just said, now, I know the Championship, Sheffield United, Leeds probably didn't come across it often, but when they did come across a team that played a low block, it was a player that, Sean, as he says there, like, it wasn't good with 2 men on him, he'd pass it back. Like, what would we need to do to get the best out of him in a low block? Because the transfer does look promising to Rangers just now.
I think that from what we've seen with Chris Wilder in the past, I think in a low block situation, I think you've got to be constantly moving. And I think you've got to have a right back going round him, offering something else and letting him come inside or even late through, because he's certainly not a greedy player. So I think the low block, or like you said, the doubling up on a player, you've just got to get more players around to help him out, because if he's kind of if there's other players sort of taking the attention away from Rak-Sakyi, then that's when it can be really dangerous. And he is a fantastic footballer, and you will see some really, really good moments from him. I'm just really interested to see how this is going to pan out, because he could be up there playing Champions League football or European football and really, really standing out. He's just going to go one way or the other, as I've just mentioned.
You've just nicely segued into where I was going to go. You touched on it earlier as well when you sort of talked about how you guys might have wanted him depending on what level you were sitting at. And obviously you've just touched on there. We're obviously aiming to be in the Champions League this year. We're currently on the right road to at least get past this first round, which will guarantee his league phase either in the Champions League or the Europa League. How do you feel? We touched on the low block there. On the opposite sort of side of things, how do you think you could fare against these higher level oppositions that we can potentially face in European competition?
Yeah, I think he can be really good. I think on the break, I think when obviously you've got better players than we've got, in my opinion, and probably in your opinion as well. So I feel like for Sheffield United, he was probably doubled up on more because he was looked at as one of the best players. We got, don't get me wrong, we've got quite a lot of good players in the Championship compared to other, average Championship players. But Jez was seen as one of the most dangerous players. So I think for you guys, it might not necessarily be a starter. It might be someone that you bring on that can make something happen. I do feel like you do need to bed him in and get him playing week in, week out, because I don't think he's a player that's just going to come on and make something happen out of nothing if he's not played for 4 or 5 games. Now, if he's coming on every game or he's playing one, sitting on the bench for one, then that might be all right. But I don't know. He is a very confidence-based player, and which a lot of strikers and wingers are. But I think that's the best way that you can get the best out of him, is playing on the break and playing him as high as possible, getting touch tight to players and trying to roll them and getting away from them. And once they're one-on-one, he's away from them every time, because he's such a talented footballer, especially dribbling, close control. He's got the tricks. I think once he's pushed it past the defender, he's getting round him every time. He's quite a slender player. He's quite not gangly exactly, because he doesn't look gangly, but he does feel taller and more slender than most wingers, because he probably is. Like, most wingers are probably going to be shorter and quicker. But he is, you don't know which way he's going to go, and he will get you off your seat. I guarantee that. So just to answer your question, I just feel like it will be playing on the break, and it will be, isolating defenders and getting him to run at them.
I mean, that sounds perfect. We had player last season on loan, Vaclav Cherny, and he was kind of one of the two probably big star players that we had last season in terms of performance, and that was a big part of his game in Europe, was giving us that outlet on the break, and like you say, kind of beating a man and getting in and scoring goals, which he did frequently. So that's kind of who Rak-Sakyi will be compared to, I think, if he does come, simply because he's going to be in the same position that the Cherny was in before. How is he in terms of, you talked about him like settling into the team sort of earlier on. How was he in terms of his interplay with the other players in the pitch? You'll forgive me, I don't know particularly how you guys played last season. So, I mean, in terms of attacking, he's likely going to be in a sort of a forward 3 if he's with us. How is he in terms of like interchanging? Does he move around the pitch much else, or is he one that tends to like hug his touchline or stay on his side?
Yeah, he stays on his side. I think, for the majority of last season, we played a front 3. We played a front 2 very, very late on last season. We changed sort of when Keith got fit again. We stuck him up top, and it seemed to work. I think the majority of the season we played with this kind of, I don't really want to say front 3, because Gus Harmer was one of those front 3, and he certainly wasn't a left-sided, really high up winger. He came inside quite a lot. So I would say Jez hugged the touchline more, but he certainly came inside and scored goals. But he interchanged with Tyrese Campbell really, really well. I think that he can, strike up these partnerships with players. He's a very intelligent footballer. I think that if we'd have had a right back that would have, because we've got a really, really exciting quick right back called Femi Sariki, that if he'd have played for the majority of last season. I think it'd have really helped Rak-Sakyi out, and they could have had a really good partnership on that right-hand side. But our right-back was constantly changing, and for the most part, most of our right-backs were stay-at-home right-backs, if you like, weren't really helping him out, like going round him and kind of giving him another option. But there was a period of time where him and Tyrese Campbell, our striker, were linking up constantly. It was just like one week it was Tyrese Campbell setting up Rak-Sakyi. The next week it was the opposite way. So I feel like he can work with players really well, but we just didn't have that right back for him to have that kind of connection with. But like I say, he certainly linked up with the attacking midfielders and the striker as well.
Do you know much about, we've brought in on loan this season, Max Aarons. I don't know if you know much about him from sort of before his injuries and that when he played. Do you think our captain, James Tavernier, plays at right back, but most fans are at this stage kind of hoping that he's going to be getting phased out and that Aarons will be taking that position. So on the assumption that he is the player that plays, do you think he's someone that could sort of dovetail well with him?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Max Aarons has got such a great engine. I'm not sure since his injuries and stuff. In all honesty, I'd forgotten all about Max Aarons. I didn't know what had happened to him because obviously when he came or when he was in the Premier League for Norwich, despite how bad Norwich were in the Premier League, I always really, really rated Max Aarons. And with him having such high energy, I think that'll really help Rak-Sakyi because he's not a high energy player, or he's somebody that will come into action when there's a chance. He's probably going to walk around the pitch for a lot of it. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't great at getting back and helping out the defenders, but in my opinion, attacking wingers shouldn't be coming back and helping the defenders out anyway. And that's what Chris Wilder wanted from his wingers at all times. At times we were asking him to come a bit too far back. So if you guys are happy with him kind of being as far forward as he can be, that's where he really thrives. And I think that he could really do well with Max Aarons, and then obviously linking up with the players inside as well. So if he's got options inside and down the right hand side, that just gives him so many options to pick.
See, in terms of service into the centre forwards, did they give any last season? What type of passes was it? Was it low? Is he a good crosser of the ball? Things like that. How does he like to supply the strikers for shots on target?
His supply is very good, in all honesty. I think he's a very intelligent player. He can find those through balls. If he's cutting inside and then playing a lovely little cross ball through to a striker, or even getting down that right hand side and getting him in with his right foot. Even it's usually a low cross along the box. That I don't think I've seen him like clip a ball into the box for someone to rise high and head into the goal. I think quite often it is getting isolating the left back, getting past him and getting a low cross into the box, either a cutback or in that corridor of uncertainty. So that's what he would usually do. But he can go both ways. He can, like I've mentioned already, he can go both ways. He can go on his left and have a shot, or find the striker, or find an attacking midfielder in a good position, or he can go down the right hand side. And like I say, he can find those. I'm thinking of one in particular moment where he got down the right hand side and it was a fantastic ball with his right. So maybe I'm just thinking about that one moment, but I feel like I've seen that more than once this season, where he's got a good low ball in with his right foot. So that's how I remember him finding the striker.
We've just got a question here for one of our commenters. He's saying, can you see him thriving in Scotland and in the European stage?
It's hard to say because I don't watch enough Scottish football, in all honesty. Yeah. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm just asking this question from you guys. Other than Rangers and Celtic, what level would you kind of compare the rest of the league to in England?
League One, 100%.
League One? Okay.
Not good enough for Championship.
Right. Fair enough.
I would say maybe Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen, maybe one or two others would fight to stay up, but I wouldn't say they would be tearing up any. But the level's really bad.
Well, that's your answer then, because he's been playing against Championship defences all last season, and you know when he was good, it was great. And I'm not saying I don't think he's Premier League quality, and that's the reason why I mentioned that I wouldn't want to see him back at Bramall Lane. Like when we quite often try and sign players that we've had on loan, we try and sign them on loan again when we get promoted to the Premier League, and it never works. It never ever works. And like I said, I wouldn't have wanted to see him back if we were in the Premier League. So again, it depends what sort of European stage we're talking about, because there's a golfing class between Real Madrid and Panathinaikos, for instance. So it really depends, because it could really thrive against Greek teams or Cypriot teams or whoever are playing against. But I just don't think he's at that level where he's probably a lower end Premier League player, top end Championship player when he's on his day. But he's still only young, and he still could reach the top. He's got all the tools. I just don't know whether he's got that mentality, to do it consistently enough, because I think that's his biggest problem, just being consistent.
What would you say his ceiling is? How far can he go in the game, Nick?
Again, I feel like his ceiling could be really, really high. I don't think he's a world class. I don't think he will be a world class player. However well he plays, I feel like he has got practically all the tools. Obviously, he's not a really strong player. Like I say, he's quite slight, he's quite slender, and but I don't remember him getting knocked off the ball too many times last season. But I suppose football doesn't really. It's gone away from that physicality, really, even in the Championship. So I think that's probably his only downfall. I don't remember him scoring any headers last season. I don't remember him trying to get up for a header. So that's another, point that he's not exactly great at, a bit of a negative, but that's most wingers. You're not going to see many wingers, towering above defenders and winning headers. But I think he's at the kind. His ceiling is potentially, top half Premier League. But is he going to get there? I'm not sure.
I was going to ask a question at the horror of all Rangers fans, but I'm going to park that for a second just to follow on to what you said there. Do you feel like one of the big things that we want to do and look to do with players is obviously bring up someone in, ideally as low value as we can, get them obviously performing for us, and then sell them for larger money? It's something that, unfortunately, from our perspective, the other half of the site has been quite good at. Players like Van Dijk being the sort of the pinnacle, I think, of the example. So obviously that would be something that we'd want to do with him as well. Do you think, like from my point of view, the thing that obviously we offer a player like him, because obviously he can earn much more money if he stays down south, if that's what he's interested in. But the thing that we can offer that I think players at his particular level, that the types of clubs he might go to down south can't, are the things like the European football, the size of the stadium, the sort of the size and tradition of the club, and the sort of the feeling of playing for one of the big clubs without necessarily being at the sort of big clubs in terms of being at like a top end. Obviously, we consider ourselves a big club, but they're still Liverpool, Man United, as another level. But we can kind of offer the feeling of that. So would it be fair to say that coming to us could be a make or break thing for him in terms of the route you're talking about and his development? If he can come and perform, under the pressure that he'll be under, and particularly obviously in Europe, whatever level that what ends up being. Do you think that could be a make or break thing, or do you think he could still come back and find himself re-find his feet if he was to come and sort of not tear it up? We had one of the things I'm kind of thinking of, we had Ahmed Diallo from Man United over at ours a couple of years back, and he unfortunately didn't have a great time of it. But then he went off to Sunderland, was excellent for Sunderland, and obviously now he's looking bright again. So does he thinking about it again? You know what you said about his mentality and things like that. Could this be a make or break move for him, or? Like I say, do you think he's got it in him to potentially come here, fail, and still be able to push forward after?
I think you might be right. I think it might be a make or break for him. I know it's difficult to say with him going to Scotland because it's a completely different kettle of fish to any of the English leagues, really, because, like you say, Celtic and Rangers are massive clubs that would play in the Premier League. And then, like you say, you've got quite a lot of teams that are kind of League One standard. So it's such an odd league that I feel like he could go there and really thrive. Like you say, it's a massive club. It's a massive club going to Rangers, and he really could thrive there with obviously how passionate fans are, how amazing that derby is as well. But yeah, I feel like if you get behind him, you'll probably get the best out of him. But based on his mentality, I might be completely wrong about his mentality. That's how it feels when you watch him play football, and that's how you feel when he kind of goes off the boil for a few games. And I'll be honest with you, there were a couple of games where I was like, he is playing terrible. Like he couldn't do anything right, and he'd get the ball and there's two players offering him an option, and then he gets tackled, and he's like I say, he's such a confidence-based player, and he can be fantastic, but he also can be quite bad at times. I didn't see too many of those times, but they were there. So I want him to do well. I feel like going to Rangers could be a make or break for him. I hope he does well, because he could end up falling down the leagues if he doesn't do well with you guys. Like I say, that mentality thing really does mean to me that I looking at Ahmad and looking at Jez, Ahmad feels like he's got that air of not arrogance, confidence that could turn into arrogance. And I don't think Jez has that in him. But that could change. He could go to you guys, bang a load of goals in, and then you just, as much as you don't want to see him, and being British people, we're not arrogant people necessarily compared to like Americans or whatever. But you want to see that swagger from a striker or a winger, don't you? You want to see that arrogance. And someone who's just a little bit in his shell, I don't know, you just feel like you want to break him out of that and be like, score a really good goal, celebrate like you deserve to. And, that's what carries a lot of players through to becoming sort of world-class players, or, playing the Champions League every season, or, I don't feel like that's him. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think that little bit of self-belief or arrogance, or whatever you want to call it, is, I think, really key for a player to get to that top level. I mean, just look at Cristiano Ronaldo. The ego is as big as the personality, but he's got that stuff to back it up, and I've no doubt that's part of what has got him to the point in his career that he got to, because he believed he was the best, and that was what he would strive to do. Okay, I'm going to come back to it. Brace yourselves, everyone. But I'm going to touch on the subject that we never want to talk about, which is, you touched on injuries a little bit earlier on. We've had a horrific time over the last 3 to 4, 5 to 6 million years, it feels, with players and injuries. And even more annoyingly, so good players with injuries. We had, I don't know if you know Kamar Roof, arguably one of the best strikers we've had at the club in the last decade, but he was just never fit. Every time he was on the field, he'd score a goal, but he was only on the field twice a season. So, place like that. We had a defender as well, Helander, excellent defender, just made of rice. When you said that he had a couple of injuries, you did sort of say they were slight injuries. So that's good. And obviously, he still played 36 games, so that's a positive. What I was going to ask though was, what type of injuries was he getting? Was it on the field impact type of injuries, or was he getting injured like on the training pitch? Because we have tended to notice differences between the two and how the players come back from that. So I was just kind of wondering, what from what you remember, you might not maybe remember perfectly, but were they kind of on pitch injuries or off the field?
It's hard to work out sometimes with Chris Wilder because he keeps everything so close to his chest that if a player's not played for a couple of games, like for instance, I've just pulled up his injury record on Transfer Marks because it says that he missed 7 games for the Blades between December 25th and January 22nd, which actually, that's perfect. I'd certainly say that I were injured in between those dates just to have a nice Christmas, really. But I do feel like he did miss way more games than just those 7 games, because 7 games, especially in that sort of Christmas period when you got loads of games coming thick and fast, is not great. And actually, something that I wanted to bring up was that when I did the research on this when I did a video about the loan players, and when he wasn't playing, we lost a lot more. Well, we went through until I think it was Boxing Day when Harry Souttar got injured, who was like our best centre back last season, and we were fantastic. We barely conceded any goals. We won practically every game, it felt like. And then we got to that stage, and I don't know whether it was because Harry Souttar got injured or whether it's because Jesurun Rak-Sakyi wasn't there, because he certainly up to that period was playing really well and being very effective at the top end of the pitch. But he got injured at that point, and we lost quite a few games and drew quite a few games that no one would turned into draws and wins. So I don't know whether you want to read into that as much as what you'd like, but he certainly did. When he was injured, we didn't win as many games. But to go back to what you're saying about the injuries, there were certainly a few more where there was like 1 or 2 games that he'd missed. And they all seemed very innocuous. Like that 7 games had a muscle injury. So that to me just sounds like it could have easily just been a bit of a bang, but I can't remember any of the injuries that he picked up, especially on the pitch. I don't remember him going down a lot, and I don't remember him coming off the pitch a lot. Whereas some players, you're like, they're quite. It's quite obvious that they've gone down. They keep going down. I don't know whether it's fitness levels or whether they're just made of glass. But he certainly didn't feel like he was on the ground a lot. He got brought down quite a few times, but he didn't stay down if I remember rightly. So yeah, I don't think you've got a lot to worry about. And that injury for Crystal Palace, where it said he missed 26 games, apparently 177 days. That was a hamstring injury, which they're never good. We've had Ryan Brewster for quite a few years, and his hamstrings are like G-strings, and you know what it's like with players. Once the hamstrings start to go, it's worrying, and they don't pick up the pace like they used to. But last season, it didn't feel like that was a problem. It didn't ever look like he was not running at full speed, if you know what I mean. It did feel like he was, he was never worried about hamstrings or anything like that. So I don't think injuries, you've got a lot to worry about. Obviously, famous last words, because anything can happen. But from last season, it didn't feel like that. And we had a lot of injuries as well last season. So I wouldn't throw Rak-Sakyi into that, he was injured a lot category.
See, in terms of your rivals across the way, Sheffield Wednesday, now, I know, I don't know how funny you'll find their situation or whatever, but in terms of what's going on with them, obviously we've just taken Jide Gassama from them.
Yeah.
Would you think, if you were to sit here with a Rangers top on, that having Jez on one wing and Gassama on the other, would you be quite happy as a Rangers supporter?
I think so. Yeah. Gassama was very, very good last season for Wednesday. And, I expected Wednesday to come to Bramall Lane last season for the first game and not get a kick. And he was very, very exciting to watch as not obviously as a Sheffield United fan, but as a football fan in general. So I think obviously him coming in on his right, I saw the goal that he scored the other day as well. Great, really good. I don't feel like Gus. I don't feel like Jez is the same man. Same sort of play. I think Gassama's got more pace. I think Jez has got more tricks in his locker and he's better at beating a man. So maybe that'll complement the strike force, because if you've got someone doing one thing and there's someone doing another, and then maybe, as managers tend to do sometimes, switch them over, that could be something that they look to do. But yeah, I think they could work hand in hand, really.
Fair enough. See how you're talking about Chris Wilder's tactics earlier on. Does he like his wingers to track back and help out? Does Sakyi do that?
No, he doesn't want to do that. Which I know lots of wingers don't want to do that. Like, of course you wouldn't. But Chris Wilder made our wingers track back, especially that right hand side, because as I mentioned earlier, on the left hand side wasn't an out winger. It was Gus Harmer playing on the left, coming in on his right foot. So Chris Wilder wanted him to help back, and he did it, but he wasn't very good at it. In all honesty, I think that you want your attackers to attack, and when you're asking them to defend, it's a recipe for disaster. I don't remember anything necessarily worrying about him tracking back and booting a player and completely mistiming it and giving away a penalty or anything like that. But I do remember him not being being a little bit pointless in being back, because he wasn't really getting stuck in, and actually that's probably a good thing, because who wants to see an attacker flying with tackles? So I wouldn't say that he would be great at tracking back, and as I mentioned, he did do it when the manager asked him to do it, but I wouldn't, if I was a manager, I wouldn't be telling him to do that.
Aye, fair enough. See, in terms of drawing a foul, was he getting lumps knocked to him last season? The only reason I'm asking, I think we only won 2-3 penalties last year. Doug's your stats man, he would be able to tell me, and within 30 seconds. But years before that, we had the likes of Ryan Kent and players like that who were very good at drawing fouls in the box, hence why James Tavernier was scoring 10 to 12 penalties a season. Do you think Sakyi would be one of those players that could contribute to penalty to Rangers?
I don't remember him winning a penalty for us last season. He drew fouls, but only because, if he's going to get past you, you've got to stop him. So he wasn't necessarily someone who tried to draw fouls or drew like tactical fouls, if you like. Do you know, if you're struggling, you're a bit under the cosh and just, pushing it past someone and throwing yourself to the deck. He was not really that sort of player. So I would go for a no. I'd err on the side of a no. But I think players do bring him down because he gets past them with how good he is at taking players on. So, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say he's a player that's going to win you loads of penalties.
Fair enough. Doug, you like to come in?
Yes, I will do. To answer your question, we got 2 penalties last season in the league. Anyway, I think I can't think off the top of my head in terms of the cups, but 2 in the league.
I actually found this guy in the YouTube comments coming out of Rangers stats left, right, and centre, and I was like, fancy joining the pod.
Good idea.
It's me. I throw out numbers until people hate it, which they now hate. What was I going to say? I've actually got I've got a non-Rak-Sakyi question for you. It's something I've started doing with the people that come on. I'm just I find it kind of quite interesting. You talked about comparing the players between Sheffield United and Rangers. If you could take one Rangers player, who would it be?
Oh God. Here we go. I don't know a lot of Rangers players, I'll be honest. I will. One thing that I was going to mention earlier on when you were talking
that could be quite interesting, though, because if you knowing who's breaking through, who are the names that are breaking through?
No, I was just gonna mention. One of the players that we really wanted at one point, and he went to the bright lights of European football and stuff with you guys, was Tom Lawrence, and we really wanted Tom Lawrence, and unfortunately, obviously, it went to you guys instead. But that was it. I think he was out of contract at Derby, and it's one of them where we're top end of the Championship, and we can't, get him over to Sheffield, and he'd rather go to Scotland and play for, a title between two teams, or and obviously play in Europe as well. So I think you were absolutely right earlier on talking about that players will quite often like to go up to Rangers, whether than be a Championship club vying for promotion sometimes, because especially next season the Championship is going to be a crazy league with how much money's in it and how many really good teams are coming down, and there's still other teams in and around the playoffs that could mount a title push. So that's going to be really exciting. But yeah, I'm kind of skirting around your question because I don't know many Rangers players at the moment. But if you want to throw a few out there, I'll say yes or no.
Well, the big one right now, I think, or the big two, are Nicholas Raskin, the Belgian midfielder. He's been linked to a few places. And Hamza Egerman, who's one of our strikers. He's currently getting linked to Everton. They seem a bit split on the opinion of that, although on the point of stats, I looked up today that in his one season with Rangers, he scored enough goals in Europe to be in the top 5 of Everton's all-time European goal scorers. So he must be doing something right.
Wow.
But it's interesting you say Tom Lawrence, actually, because he's one of the players I would fit into that. What I was saying earlier about decent players, but too injured all the time. I thought Tom Lawrence was a good player. He tended to get bypassed by our tactics a little bit that we were playing at the time, but he scored goals, and he scored winning goals early on in our season in particular. And he was out for a while. He came back in near the end and did score a couple of important goals. He scored in our penalty shootout when we put out Fenerbahce in the Europa League.
He's got that arrogance. Tom Lawrence has got that arrogance. He scored 2 against us, I think, the season before. And quite often, if a player scores against you or looks really good against you, you remember that. And you think, I'd love to sign them at some point. I think that's the reason why we wanted to, fans wanted to sign him. I don't know how close we were to signing him. But he did feel like he had that air of arrogance.
I feel like, what we were saying there particularly works with the slightly older players, the ones that are maybe in their late 20s, who've maybe played for a bit longer down south, and so that when they're looking at potentially choosing, like say, probably likelihood Championship or lower end Premiership and coming to us, that's when things like the chance to win the titles, the opportunity to get into to play in Europe, I think that hits a little bit harder then. Because we are quite successful in buying. Not all the players themselves have been successful, but in buying those players that are slightly later on in their journey. So like Tom Lawrence, Davies, Dowell, he was a bit more mid-20s when he came, but that kind of thing. I think we're quite good at attracting players in that point in their career. When maybe they are thinking a bit less, I'll go up there for a season or two, maybe I can win some things playing Europe, and then go back down and get the money again. Whereas the younger players, I think it can be a little bit harder. But yeah, well, it's been really great talking to you. I don't know if is there any other questions in the chat. I know you've been pulling some up, Scotty. But yeah, it's been really good talking to you, and thank you very much for coming on and joining us tonight.
No worries. Thank you very much, and I hope he does really well for you.
Do you want to tell people where they can find you, Nick?
Yeah. So Sheffield United Way, if you just want to type that into any social media platform, we will be there. Even TikTok. Like I've barely even opened TikTok, and we are on there. And I'm nearly 40, for God's sake. I'm 37, so yeah, I'm not really a TikTok man, but we're on it. We've got someone doing it, and we've got someone. Well, we're on every social media platform. So if you want to see anything from us, we're most followed on YouTube, but we've got the podcast, we've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everything.
Good stuff. Okay, well, we'll let you go then. We won't take up any more of your time. So, as I say, once again, just thanks for coming on and giving us more of an insight on the lad.
No worries. Cheers, chaps. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, mate. Cheers for coming on.
Right.
So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think he sounds encouraging. There are a few little sort of red flags in there as well, but particularly given the price that we potentially will pay for him. But I think you could have said the same about Ryan Kent when we were buying him. He had less experience than Rak-Sakyi has, and you probably could have said the same with Cherney, who had one good season. Or one particularly good season in sort of the couple running up to joining us, and then obviously he came and flew. And I think that's kind of the difficult thing about it is he touched on the fact, our league is a little bit strange in that you've got, us and Celtic, you've got maybe 2 or 3 or 4 clubs underneath us that are relatively decent, and then the rest it can really go up and down. So it really depends on how players take to that and the physicality. I do still think some players, even though there's a good level of physicality in the Championship in particular, I do still think that catches them out a little bit, and that maybe in part because in the Championship they've got real referees who actually give fouls for fouls. So you've got that kind of thing to learn as well. So as I say, a couple of little things. The fact that he's maybe a wee bit slight. The confidence thing, how's the jersey going to hang in him if he's a confidence player? But then I think that will be where Martin's man management comes in. If he has a confidence player, then it'll be about Martin keeping that confidence up, and then hopefully we get the best out of him. And obviously, ideally, if we have a good season and we're pushing for the title, we're doing well in Europe and that kind of thing, then the confidence should breed itself from within the team and within the player. So all that sounds good, but yeah, maybe just a little bit hesitant given, as I say, the price tag. So it'll be interesting to see what happens deal wise with it, and whether or not, I'm wondering whether we'll maybe not hear huge amounts more about it until after the second leg, because again, in my mind, if I was Kavanagh and Parag, I would be sitting there thinking to myself, I'm not going to commit until I know what the outcome of that game is, because, like I say, although there'll still be we have Champions League level money or Europe League, and there's still a huge difference there, it still gives them the bedrock of knowing, okay, we're in Europe, and that, I think, gives them, that changes the last couple of weeks of the window in terms of, right, there's maybe some of these guys we didn't think we could get before. Wayne Mound might be able to lure them, because we can say, look, come here, you're guaranteed to play in Europe in some way or form. And of course, obviously, they'll know that they'll maybe have a little bit more money. And ideally, we'll have shifted some of the players that we're wanting to shift, or perhaps have sold one or two of the big options that are there in terms of Raskin or Egaman, and that'll obviously help with the financial side as well.
I definitely will just need to wait and see. I personally think that the noises that are coming out say that it could be later in the window, but I think if we get through against Panathinaikos, and no matter who it is, Pilsen or Servette we play, there's a good chance of reaching that playoff round, and I think the club will want to give Russell Martin a chance to actually get to the Champions League, something that, if we speak about it in detail, which we will next week, did we really think that we had a decent chance to get there? If we get past Panathinaikos, I know I didn't feel as if we had a decent chance of getting to the Champions League. I don't know about anybody else in the podcast, but if we can negotiate that, and then you can negotiate Servette and Pilsen, don't know what the playoff draw is like, but if all of a sudden you're in the Champions League and you've got money and the board back the manager with the right players and the right signings, then anything's possible. You can get into that group stage. If we get past Panathinaikos next week, then I believe that there will be deals getting done to facilitate Russell Martin getting the playoff round. So we'll just need to wait and see. But Doug, thank you for coming on anyway, mate.
My pleasure. I think, what you said there is bang on. If I'm right, and forgive me if I'm not, but if I'm right, I believe the playoffs would likely be Braga or Club Brugge. I think Feyenoord are the other team that are likely, but they'd be on the unseeded side with us. So I think those are the types of teams we might get in the playoff round, and those are difficult teams but beatable teams. So as with all these things, it's half of it is just the luck of the draw. So I think we've got the luck of the draw for the next round. So, like you say, it's about now hopefully just giving them all the weapons they can to get through it.
Definitely. All I've said is a playoff round, and I'd be a happy camper just for that £5 million because of where we're at. Anyway, as I said, thank you for joining me. If you're watching on our platform, please head on over to our YouTube channel and subscribe and turn the notification bell on. The YouTube channel is where we like to kind of focus our attention on. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow pre and post match Borough to discuss the game, team lineup pre-match, and we'll be there to discuss the match afterwards. So apart from that, take care and remember, every night it's a Rangers Journal night. Good night.